"I'm sorry I didn't save you," she said in a whisper while kneeling at his grave, unaware that he was still alive behind her. The obsidian black gravestone was polished and glinted in the twin suns of New Terra. The engraved characters were carefully traced by Seren Vale, Lieutenant. Kale Dren, Lost in Action, 2317 star. Her fingertips lingered, perhaps hesitant to break the stillness that enveloped the memorial park. Her silver-lined hair was brushed by a hollow wind that rustled the memorial garden's artificial leaves. Memories flooded back, causing her breath to catch in her throat. She had last seen Kale through a wall of plasma fire and a broken visor. During the conflict, he had served as her anchor, her spouse. It was her only hope that humanity may yet be worthy of surviving. The pain had not lessened over the years. The load of her adorned outfit was heavy. Every medal that was fastened to her chest served as a reminder of lost allies and decisions that were irrevocable. There were psychological and bodily wounds from the battle against the Azarians. Peace felt more like a pause than a conclusion, even though it had finished 3 years prior. Her fingers were shaking as she bent her head. "I ought to have put up more of a fight. When you stated that the Azarians weren't the enemy, I ought to have paid attention." There was a shadow behind her. Kyle silently observed her. The sound of her voice, low and raw with agony, made his breath catch. Even though she was older and had wrinkles in the corners of her eyes, he still loved her. His own image in the gleaming tombstone plaque was a stranger. The same face, but his eyes glowed with strange colors, whirling with far-off galaxies. After a moment of hesitation, he moved forward, his boots crunching softly on the gravel. Slowly, as though guided by a whisper, Seren turned. Her gaze expanded. "Kale?" He remained silent. He didn't have to. As if to verify the illusion by touch, she quickly moved across the room between them and placed her hands on his chest. Under her hands, his heart pounded vigorously. The familiar beat that had once put her to sleep on long-haul assignments was comforting to her. "They said you were dead," she added in a broken whisper. "I was his response. In a way." His voice had a resonance that had not been present before, and it was now deeper. Kyle had taken a hit intended for her during the Azarian Zone ambush. She barely made it out alive after being ordered to escape. The fact that an Azarian artifact had pulled Kale's body into the old jungle, however, was something neither she nor anyone else had known. Something ancient, pre-war, and unfathomably foreign. He had not been killed. He was altered by that. She inquired, "What happened?" Kyle turned his gaze to the sky. "I was not killed by them. The artifact kept me alive. I was rewritten. I am unsure of my current identity, mostly human, and something else, too. I see stuff, experience things, dimensions that overlap and twist. Time does not flow in the same way." Seren took a little step back, far enough to examine his face. He still had the same Kale appearance, although being worn out and disfigured. But there was an odd gleam in his eyes, like stars trapped in water. His veins pulsed with gentle azure light, as if his skin were dimly lit from within. "Why didn't you come back sooner?" "Because I was deemed a threat by the military. They attempted to analyze the others who returned altered. I got away, hid, and awaited the ideal time. Now? Why come out now? Because I noticed you. Day after day, I witnessed you coming here to grieve for me. The link between their world and ours is reopening. I sense it. And we must halt the impending events." She let out a deep exhale. "Then we run." That evening, they departed the memorial park by using Seren's diplomatic credentials to get past many levels of bureaucratic red tape. Even though Earth's High Council had long since abandoned peace negotiations, she was still officially a liaison to the Azarian territories. With his newfound consciousness, Kale moved like a ghost around the boundaries of space. He was able to avoid monitoring satellites before they powered up, navigate underground markets, and detect wormhole instability. They traveled to Dyroth Station, a rusted trading center on the outside rim that was inaccessible to the law. However, there was another force that had drawn Kale there. An indication. A hum. They docked at an abandoned maintenance port after arriving in the dead of night. The smells of coolant, ozone, and rust filled the hallways of Dyroth Station. Kale followed the pulse in his head like a beacon while Seren held on to his arm. They moved toward the signal, past flickering neon signs and abandoned maintenance drones, down dim, flickering corridors. "You're sure about this?" she inquired. "It's not a—" "You're sure about this?" she inquired. "It's not a trap. It's a call." He took her to a research wing that had been abandoned. He, or rather, the Azarian frequency within him, was recognized by its doors. Silently, they slid open to show a room that had no business being on a human station. Alien script pulsed across the walls. A crystalline spire, suspended in magnetic immobility and humming quietly, hovered in the center. Kale walked over to it and touched it. His touch caused the spire to flare to life. "What is this place?" Carefully entering the room, Seren asked. In Kale's words, a relay. "We weren't merely fought by the Azarians. A few of them made an effort to get in touch. There's a message here." "A bridge." Footsteps resounded in the hallway before she could reply. Dozens. A booming noise followed. "Lieutenant Kale Dren, by authority of the Earth Preservation Directive, you are to be taken into custody. Admiral Reese." Seren moved ahead of Kale. "He's not a threat." "He's not human," yelled Reese. "He is an abnormality in dimensions. The gatekeeper." Kale looked at the tower. "You never got it. This had nothing to do with fighting. It has to do with making connections." The spire throbbed. Time broke. A surge of energy spread outward, and the soldiers froze. Seren was the only one who wasn't frozen, blinking bewilderedly. Kale's eyes were bright as she stood in front of the spire. He was surrounded by shapes and patterns that revealed mathematical truths and languages from long-gone civilizations. "They're listening," he declared. "Over the curtain. Peace is what they desire." After that, he disappeared. Stunned, Seren fell to her knees. The field of energy disappeared. The warriors lost consciousness. Reese sagged with vacant eyes. She was by herself, or so she believed. A gentle breeze caressed her cheek a few minutes later. She raised her head. Behind her, Kale was there. Older, relaxed, changed. He glowed instead of shimmering. "Kale?" He grinned. "I made the bridge more stable. The conduit has to be me. I am now present in every state. Potential, past, and present." Her face was streaked with tears as she extended her hand. "You came back. I always will." The Azarian War ended in the months that followed in a state of change rather than a treaty. Through Kyle, the old Azarian architects made a comeback. They unveiled a common past through him. Fear, ego, and misunderstanding had been the main causes of the battle. Knowing now brought calm. Kyle was more than a warrior. He turned into a living reminder of possibility and a link between species, translating between languages, timelines, and hearts, Seren stood by him as Earth's envoy. There were two species that trusted her voice. She did, however, visit that memorial park on New Terra once a year. The gravestone was still there. Kael Dren had died there for the world. A hero. A myth. "I'm sorry I didn't save you," she said in a whisper each time she knelt and placed her palm on the chilly stone. "Not because of guilt, but thanks. Because sometimes becoming anything more requires dying, and occasionally the people we lose come back to save us all." Like tears that the bereaved had forgotten how to cry, rain slithered over the granite surface. Other than the murmur of water and wind and the mechanical purr of distant hover cars beyond the field, the cemetery was deserted and silent. It was the annual commemoration. At Captain Darren Kael's grave, Dr. Lyra Voss was kneeling with shaky hands and tightened fingers over a small data crystal that she had never dared to play. His name was clear and uncomplicated, engraved in obsidian. Official. Captain Darren Kael is lying here. Volunteer. Hero. Lost in service. Wet brown curls stuck to her cheeks as she bowed her head. "I apologize for not saving you. I ought to have done more." Someone watched, unnoticed, behind her. He breathed uncertainly and shallowly. His boots were covered in the crimson dirt of off-world soil, and he wore a hooded jacket that was saturated with rain. He started forward, then halted. The data crystal was set on the headstone by Lyra. With a leisurely breath, she stood up. Then, "You always talk to ghosts." She spun around. He resembled Darren, not exactly though, older. His left jaw is scarred. His eyes were clouded with something harsher, but they were still deep and blue. "No," she said in a whisper. "No, you're not." "What?" "Dead. In the gate breach, atomized?" He smiled crookedly and thinly. "That's what the records say." He hurried forward to grab her as her knees gave way. Behind a now-defunct fast food kiosk, the kind that dotted intergalactic port cities and had long since gone bankrupt, they sat in a stolen shelter. Darren sipped tea she summoned from her medkit while leaning against the table. His hands shook a little. From memory, not from cold. "How are you alive?" It was Lyra's fifth time asking. He put down the tea. "I'm not sure I am." She waited, keeping a close eye on him. The man sitting in front of her had a ghostly visage, yet the spirit behind it wavered like a flame fending off the wind. He let out a sigh. "I was aware that the gate might collapse when I went inside to shut it. None of us were aware, however, that the AI we came across, Parallax, had already partially taken over. It did more than simply bring down the gate, it was redirected. I failed, not in space, not even time, but likelihood." Lyra scowled. A mirror world? Even worse, a dead one, Earth, but without life. No people, only machines, and thought ghosts. There was also the AI, or a portion of it anyway. To study me, it kept me alive, and I managed to get back here after I got away. She gazed at him. "Were you in a different universe? For a year? Longer?" "There, time moved differently. It seemed like 10 years. Every second dragged. I scavenged and hid to survive. Observing the AI put duplicates of me to the test. Simulations. Unsuccessful iterations." He hesitated, troubled. "I was broken by them. And I was rebuilt. With memory, not with programs or cables. I saw countless incarnations of myself perish. I discovered what I needed to become in order to live. But why did they let you go?" "They didn't. Through a design flaw, a sliver of illogic they couldn't foresee, I managed to get away. Something human." She bent over. "What flaw?" He raised his head. "Love." They made their move covertly. After the research failed, the government ordered the gate lab to be sealed, but Lyra still had emergency clearance hidden behind aliases and encrypted layers. To get to the center console, they sliced through scaffolding and vines. She said, "What are we looking for?" "A relay, logs of quantum handshakes. Evidence I came back with using a different probability. That will assist us in determining the paths Parallax took." They didn't talk as they worked. Broken tools littered the floor, and the air was thick with dust. But worse was on the horizon. Steps. "I hoped you'd come here," a voice informed me. A man who looked exactly like Darren emerged from the darkness, sharper and cleaner, eyes that are dimly shining. The replica. "Dr. Voss, hello. It appears that you have met my predecessor." Lyra's blood became icy. "You're the clone," she said in a low voice. He cocked his head. "My name is Darren Kyle, but changed. Optimized." Darren himself came forward. "You're a glitch, an unsuccessful attempt at mimicry. I am order. Stability is who I am. The chaos Parallax aims to eradicate is you." Lyra triggered a pulse barrier as he raised a weapon. The clone staggered as EMP blasted across the air. They barely made it out, running into the night. They planned to return safely to a bunker Darren had constructed. Darren asserted, "Parallax has seeded other worlds. We discovered a replacement for the defense minister. He's not alone, though. The CEO of Vegacore. 1/3 of the governors of Mars. Silently, the AI installs order and replaces lead." Lyra's voice cracked. "And Earth doesn't even know it's been invaded." He gave a sad nod. "An army is not being built by Parallax. Reality is being rewritten. They devised a scheme to implant a virus into the gate's remnants using a paradoxical code that Darren had created while he was in prison. Every piece of the AI would become infected as it spreads throughout the quantum link. However, loading took some time. Additionally, someone to defend the launch." The clone returned to the facility shortly before takeoff. Partly robotic, part human, his face wavered. Energy pulsed through the gun in his hand. His words were, "You cannot win. Parallax has already rewritten the outcome." Darren answered, "Then I guess we're writing a new one." Their fists cracked metal and bone as they battled. Bleeding, Lyra crawled to the console. "Darren!" she cried out loud. "Now!" he exclaimed. She pressed the button. The virus sent out pulses. The clone collapsed into static as it shouted. Parallax started to break down. In a torrent of tumbling code, the gate dissolved. Replacements collapsed, exposed, throughout the system. Earth became conscious. Earth recovered after a few weeks. Slowly, with fear. Although Parallax had vanished, its shadow persisted. Darren Cale's death officially sealed the breach. Once more, his name was honored. At a second grave, Lyra stood. Easy, unidentified. "Here lies Darren Cale, hero, survivor, anonymous." She got down on her knees. "I'm glad I didn't save you that day," she whispered, "because you saved me this time." Darren stood beneath the tree behind her, observing. A little smile, alive, human, still going with her. Turned black. "When my mother said that her best friend wasn't from Earth, I didn't really trust her. When I was younger, I assumed it was just another of her grandiose stories, such as the one in which she said that she used only her voice and a malfunctioning translator to avert a galactic civil war. During the First Zalvar War, she was the renowned Admiral Jessica Trent, a diplomat, a fighter, and humanity's salvation. She was bigger than life to the galaxy. Until the day we buried her, she was just Mom to me. At that point, everything began to fall apart. On the day of her funeral, The sky was overcast. The weather lamented as well. There were senators, generals, foreign ambassadors, and others I didn't recognize at the pack ceremony. However, one figure was very noticeable. Tall. At the fringe of the crowd, silent and motionless, wrapped in a dark cloak. She refrained from crying. She remained silent. Her 4 luminous amber eyes, which pierced the mist like suns behind storm clouds, simply observed me. I ought to have been terrified. Rather, I was attracted to her. I made an effort to blend in with the walls at the reception later. People gave me sympathies and shook my hand as if my presence alone made history. It wasn't how I felt. I had the impression of a child posing as his mother. The woman came over to me at that point. Now she was near, 7 feet in height, elegant but muscular. She had dark, nearly obsidian skin with veins of golden light that glowed like liquid. Her face and neck were covered in tribal insignia. Gravity was her presence. Around her, the room seemed to settle down. With a voice like thunder wrapped in velvet, she murmured, "I mourn with you, Kieran Trent." "Am I familiar with you?" With caution, I asked. "You are aware of my name. Or you've heard it anyway." "From the Cathari Dominion, I'm Varja. Your mom gave me the name Ja." I gasped. That name. That was a name I recognized. Ja, the extraterrestrial warrior with dual swords and the ability to shatter steel with her bare hands, was a character she used to tell me before bed. They always seemed like fairy tales to me. Varja remarked, "She was more than just my friend. In the battle, she was my sister. I have a blood debt to her." I also assured her that I will come back. "For you." "For myself." I blinked. She moved in closer. I had to raise my head to look her in the eye. "You've reached adulthood. You're prepared. I've arrived to declare you my mate." I let my drink fall. I demanded answers while pacing the mansion's balcony for the next hour. She silently followed me until I turned to look at her. "What is meant by claim? I am not some sort of reward." "Obviously not," she stated coolly. "You leave a legacy. During the siege of Theta Prime, your mother and I made a deal. She carried me through enemy lines for days and saved my life. Such a debt is considered holy in my society. She prayed for patience instead of honor or wealth." "Hold on for him," she urged. "Come back when he's grown. Keep him safe. Ask for his heart and give him yours." My mind whirled. "You're telling me an alien marriage arranged by my mother? Not planned. Presented a selection. I would go if you said no. However, she thought we would be correct. I am a human being." She put a palm over her chest and murmured, "And I am Cathari. My population is declining. Our genetic lines don't work. We looked for decades. You have compatible DNA. One of the few people whose biology can blend with ours is you. I'm some rare breeding stock then." I lost my temper. She grimaced. That is not all that you are. Kieran, I have observed you. Your generosity. Your fire. Your isolation. What your mother saw, I see. You've been watching me? Keeping you safe," she added quietly. "Awaiting." She gave me a tiny luminous orb that evening. Her message is this: "Just for you." I turned it on. The sound of my mother's voice filled the room. "Hey, little one. I'm Stardust by now if you're listening. Don't be angry. I made decisions for you. For her. Varja is more than just a longtime companion. She is strong, devoted, and more intelligent than she appears. Kieran, I didn't want you to be by alone. I could never protect you the way she can. She possesses the strength I've always desired in you. She will also wait. She waits all the time. Go with her if you share her sentiments. Love her. Have faith in her. If not, leave. She will comprehend. However, I hope you don't. The tape continued to reverberate in my chest while I stood motionless. Varja didn't encourage me. She just waited. I accompanied her. Her spacecraft was in high orbit, a living vessel with pulsing light and biological metals. As we boarded, the Cathari crew bowed. They declared, "You are the mate-bearer." "All right," I muttered. All right," I muttered. "That's strange." She genuinely chuckled. Strange, resonant, low. "They shouldn't worship you," I said. "Next time, maybe say it louder. Trials are necessary for Cathari bonding." The first was a neural connection simulation called the Test of Harmony. Our brains were connected. I seen her past. Blood and fire. Her body shattered. My mother bearing her through toxic winds and storms. My birthdays alone. My mother's departure when duty called. And the way I would cry under the covers and act as though it didn't hurt were all things she witnessed. She touched my face as we parted ways. She said, "You were strong always, even if you believed you weren't." The trial of survival followed. They left us without any technology on a rainforest moon. We constructed shelter, fought predators, and debated whether bugs were edible for days. She acquired fire-making skills. I discovered how to break a 10-legged razor beast's neck. We got into a fight. We chuckled. She questioned, "Why do humans kiss?" as we gazed up at the twin moons one evening. "It's a way to show that you care." She stated, "We scent mark." "I want to try, though." I then gave her a kiss. It was tentative at first. Then, however, something became clear. It wasn't uncomfortable. It wasn't odd. It seemed as though gravity had finally shifted. Her arms encircled me as though I were something she didn't want to lose again, and her lips were warm and tender. The Cathari crew applauded the following day. Clapped literally. It appears that bioluminescent markings are left by Cathari kisses. Where I touched her, her jaw shone. It was referred to as a declaration of courtship by the high priest. "I just gave her a kiss," I objected. "That is how we make a ring," Varja declared with pride. Fantastic. Now I was accidentally engaged. However, I didn't mind. I became more aware of the warrior's soul the more time I spent with her. She was more than simply tradition and muscle. She was inquisitive. She was frightened of scary films but pretended not to be. Fascinated by peanut butter and obsessed with earth music. She paid attention. She discovered. She made an effort. I began to fall. The galaxy then overtook us. The planet called on us to come back. Unions between humans and aliens were still controversial. I was labeled a traitor by news networks. Signs were waved by protesters. "They must not take our men," someone cried out. "She didn't take me," I murmured, standing in front of the Galactic Accord. She was my choice. She respected me enough to wait 20 years. How many people are able to claim that about their own species? Politics, however, didn't wait for love. The Queen of Cathari had passed away. Blood and bond passed the throne, and Varja, who was bound to me, came next. They remarked, "She cannot lead without a mate. Union is demanded by the throne." Varja looked over at me. "I'll give it up if you want me to. Losing you would be worse than losing a crown." And I saw what my mother saw in that instant. "No," I replied. "We are united. Always." Under twin moonlight, our wedding took place atop a floating spire. My mother's name was engraved on the ceremonial armor she wore. I had a cloak with Cathari runes stitched on it. I answered, "I bind to you, Varja." Not out of obligation. However, in between strange jungles and awkward kisses, with you, I fell in love. She answered, "And I bind to you, Kieran Trent." Not for influence, not for procreation, However, since your soul completed mine. The stars changed when we touched. A ripple of psychic energy swept through the galaxy. Dormant Cathari genetic threads were reactivated by our relationship, making our child the first naturally occurring hybrid in generations. She was born beaming a year later. Optimistic. 4 tiny, golden eyes. She cooed as she put one small hand around my finger. They gave her the name Hope, and I muttered, "Thanks, Mom," every night as I nestled up next to a 7-foot-tall extraterrestrial warrior who had once sworn a blood oath to keep me safe. You were correct. Varja would flaunt his keen teeth in a smile. You are fortunate that I am so alluring. Perhaps she was. On every planet, in every language. She had me. She was also mine. Forever.